grab your pre-workout and turn up that volume. It is time for a new episode of the Powerlifter's Den with your host, Cam Smith. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Powerlifter's Den. I'm your host, Cam Smith, and today I wanted to bring on Josh Fleming from up in the New England area, someone who has a very large total with not very known in the world of powerlifting as much as I think he should be. So, Josh, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Josh Fleming. I'm from upstate New York, around the Albany area. Been powerlifting for about 10 years now, and just kind of, I'm 30. I turned 32 in July, so been doing this since my early 20s, and just kind of been building myself up for the last decade or so.
Yeah, so we'll start by letting everybody know your best totals and what weight class you compete in.
Oh, my best total was my most recent competition back in July, just after my 32nd birthday. It was 22:35 with an 875 squat, 530 bench, and an 830 deadlift. Most of those numbers for at least my squat and my deadlift, those are the best I've ever achieved. Lifetime PRs there, and I hit 535 in the gym last year, which wasn't far off my my comp bench in July. So my best comp to date, honestly, I went 9 for 9, hit some huge PRs, and now I'm ninth amongst the 275ers. So, I've been competing in 275 pretty much my whole career. I think, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, I missed weight by like 2 pounds. So I was a 308er for like a hot second.
Yeah.
But, maybe after my my journey at 275, I'll go play with the super big boys.
Yeah, so I think to get started, I mean, those numbers are numbers that I want to hit in equip, and you're hitting them in sleeves. I know last year you did the Sizzler as well, right? And
Yes.
Is that the meet you tore your bicep in?
Yes, yeah. So this was like my last meet was also the Sizzler, and it was a super poetic moment for me. Honestly, I didn't plan it to be that way. I knew I was going to come back a year later and, put that injury, aside. But it just happened to work out, between my recovery, physical therapy, and all that, and prep time, that it was just like the perfect timing. So I was just like, you know what? It's the perfect time to just um, throw some poetry in this meathead sport we got going on, and just come back even better than I was when I tore my bicep. It was the energy for me during the deadlift flight was just amazing, because I hit my opener at 785. And then I was like, we'll do a 30-pound jump to 815 so that we can put 810 behind us, which is the weight that I tore my bicep with. And I yanked that up pretty easy, and I said, let's go for a massive PR at 830. So
yeah, an absolute monster pull, especially even you don't really see a lot of 800-pound deadlifts. Even, I mean, raw to equipped, it's not much of a difference, to be honest. But I mean, you still don't see 800-pound deadlifts really outside of strongman that often, like very rarely.
Right.
I mean, besides you, I think the only other 800-pound deadlift that I know is of Rubo.
Oh yeah, Rupo. Yeah, Rupo and I actually on that day were just like in each other's ears, like in a good way.
Yeah.
We were just hyping each other up, like let's go. And I'm the type of powerlifter where I'm just like, it's bled over to like my social media presence. Like I'm just like so dialed in, and I'm so focused that like I got blinders on all the time. And after I hit my 875 squat, he's like, dude, do you understand how close you are to the all-time world record squat for 275? I was like, you know what? Don't tell me. I'll look it up. I'll look it up later. I think it's like 909.4 or something like that. And but he brought so much great energy to that meet, like in general for the other lifters, but including myself. We were just like, let's go, man. Let's show something, real awesome right now. And it honestly, it contributed to my, the amazing day I had. Especially with my squat, my 875 squat, and that 830 pull at the end. Like, him and the guys he brought with him were huge and having me pull those numbers. So
Yeah, I mean, those guys are my ride or die. That's my crew, and I mean, the energy just that they bring all the time is awesome. That's kind of what makes powerlifting what it is.
yeah, man, they just they made it so fun. Like guys like that they're what make the sport fun.
Yeah,
There's some, my opinion, there's some federations that's suck all the fun out of it.
USAPL.
Um, um, but yeah, there's some feds that just like they take the fun out of the lifting part of it, but it's guys like that, like him and Chuck and the other guys that he brought along with him, like they just they keep that energy and the funness to it, man. It's just it really breathes life into the sport, and I love it.
Yeah, and I kind of a little bit more on the meat after seeing that 875 squat. I honestly think 900's there already for you.
Yeah, I actually had a lot in the tank, and unfortunately for Bob Pop, the meat director, he didn't, he had a great crew, running the meat. The only drawback was that he didn't have the the capacity to like cycle them out.
Yeah,
So these people were just running hot all day long. And then, it just obviously naturally the way things progressed, it just slowed things down. And I didn't do my final squat until like 7:30,
yeah,
8 o'clock at night.
yeah.
So I'd been waiting since like 2 p.m. for that was the PM session start. And, honestly, I probably, had either 900 or more had, things progress a little bit quicker because, as you're a competitor, yourself, like you understand that like if it's like a 6 to 8 hour day, beautiful.
Yeah.
But if it's like 10, 12 or more hours, you're warming up, getting all the adrenaline going, and then you're coming back down trying to get calories in, and then you're coming back up and then you're going back down. So yeah, I agree. I'm competing at the Arnold in March. And I fully intend to set the all-time world record squat for 275
Yeah,
raw.
that would be awesome. I think that's definitely in your cards, and I think if you prep right and the timing of things go, I think that's a good point to bring up too with powerlifting meets in general is with one of the variables you can't control, but it's one of the variables that probably affects you the most. And the timing of things is huge, especially for an equipped lifter versus a raw lifter.
Oh yeah.
Like an equipped lifter, you have to make sure your shit is set right. And if you get
Yes.
cold or if you have to go to the bathroom and you're in your suit, like you're in for a shit show, literally.
Oh man, I listen. I have it's a different style of powerlifting that you guys do, and the way you guys get in those squat suits, and hanging off the bar and everything like that, getting everything into place, getting all your giblets in place. It's honestly amazing, and I'm exhausted looking at you. You know,
Yeah,
so
I'm
uh,
definitely going to continue doing both, like bouncing back and forth. At some point, I want to have a total in pretty much every division there is, and but yeah, the multiply it's fun, but it can be a bitch sometimes for sure.
oh, and it just seems expensive because those suits aren't cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like hockey equipment or fucking golf equipment. All that shit's so expensive, but
Right.
um,
And I'm over here, worrying about, spending 130 some odd dollars on my insert sleeves or something like that. I'm like, oh my God,
yeah.
but
So have you always competed raw with sleeves, or have you competed in wraps at all?
no, I've always been a raw and sleeves. I don't know. I call myself a snob, but honestly, like the knee wraps, they just I don't- the thing that really like stops me from doing that is just it just looks so painful, and
Yeah.
especially if you got guys that have wrapped a few knees
Yep.
and like you get up and your toes are numb kind of thing, the way people describe it. But yeah, I just been a sleeves guy, always, whether a mono is involved or not, whether it's a mono or an ER rack, like I've always walked out my squats. Like I don't know, just a creature of habit, man. I stick to one thing and I ride with it.
So you said you've been competing for 10 years. Maybe when was your first meet, and kind of what got you to that point to sign up for one?
So I think it's I think it would be good to like tell you how I got into powerlifting and then go from there. Like so I was literally, I was lifting at a local gym, and it was your normal like soccer mom gym. They got barbells that have no knurling, and a bunch of cardio equipment and stuff like that. And I was in the army at the time, and I was just in the gym just to stay in shape and stay lean and everything like that. And I was just like, yeah, I'll I guess maybe I should incorporate deadlifts into my routine just for something different, right? And the first time I ever deadlifted, I pulled 600 beltless. I was like 21 at the time. Yeah. And some guy that did training sales at the gym. He had been a previous powerlifter. He actually had torn his bicep competing as well. And he just came up to me and he was like, "Dude, did you just do that with no belt?" I was like, "Yeah." And I'm clueless. I had no idea. And he's like, "We have to get you competing." Um, so I, from there, like, a few months later, I'm doing my first meet. It's at this local powerlifting gym. It's a small little dungeon place. It's called Albany Strength in Albany, New York.
Oh, I've
And
been there.
it's
I love that place.
Oh, you've been there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you understand the feeling. Like it is old school, like dark, dingy, like you know, metal music kind of thing. And it was a local meet, local federation, and I did my first meet there, and you know, of course, like when you first get into the sport and you do your first meet, you're like, oh my god, like, and especially if you don't bomb out, right? Um, you're just like, oh my god, I actually could do something with this, and then it just became an obsession, and you fast forward a decade later, and I'm still doing it, doing the preps and hating myself in the middle of it, and then loving meet day, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned Albany Strength. My friend works in Albany. He's actually we went to school together. He would come to Evolve on Sundays with me for a little bit, but
Okay.
after we graduated, he moved to Albany, and that's kind of where he was training for a while. I think he still goes there sometimes, but I don't think that's his like main gym. So when we were up there for I think it was Baines Barbell Classic
Yeah.
that weekend, we I think I got a squat session in there or something, and yeah, that's like your classic old dirty dingy powerlifting gym, but it's a great gym.
Yeah, I lift at ABC Sports and Fitness now,
He
in
also
Lakeland.
trained there. I
Oh,
haven't
did
been
he?
to that one yet, but he's in that area. He's been to all those.
I mean, would you mind like tell me his name? I mean, if not, I understand.
Yeah, Matty Guineri.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I think I see a face in my head, but
It's kind of like mine.
yeah, yeah.
Mustache, like gentleman's cut, like looks exactly like me. I call him my evil
Okay.
twin.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've seen that guy around, and because I've been going there like about 7 years now. But what's awesome for that gym is that they've grown such a powerlifter, like even bodybuilder, like just a competitor presence there, that in the same plaza they opened up another gym called ABC Iron, and now it's dedicated to like just powerlifting and just competitors really, but it's mainly geared towards powerlifting. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So maybe a little bit about your training itself. Obviously, you had the setback with the bicep tear, but I guess over the years, maybe what are some of the styles of training that you've incorporated into your preps and things like that?
Oh man. So, I'm sure you can kind of relate to this, but like, when you first get into something and you don't know anything, or, you kind of get attached to somebody that's got an old school way of thinking, you wind up doing some crazy stuff, right? So the first training block I ever did, for a prep was, I don't know if you've heard of it, but the Bulgarian. Have you heard of that?
I think so.
So it's crazy. You're basically maxing out every session, and it's absolutely brutal. So like, the rep range, like you do 10 sets of your compound lift,
Yeah.
and it doesn't really incorporate like accessories or anything. You do 10 sets of your compound lift, and you start with like 12 reps at like 65-70%, and then you kind of up the percentage and lower the reps all the way up to 1 rep. um I mean, I did that for probably 2 years. to the point where, my elbows and knees were just like, give it up, bro. Because, obviously that's not sustainable. But, now, being in the off season, I do a lot of volume work. Um, and that's kind of been like, the way I do things now is probably how I've been doing things for the last 4 or 5 years. But like really in the last few years, I've dialed things in really, really tight where it's, in the off season, it's volume. I might get crazy and do like, an AMRAP set with a compound movement. But it's typically like 6 to 8 rep ranges, and we'll push the percentages depending on how I'm feeling. I incorporate an RPE, style like, every once in a while just to kind of keep the CNS strong. Um, but a lot of it in the off season is just like keeping the volume like 6 to 8 reps, but like increasing, the percentage as close to that, max, without, of course, injuring yourself. It's all based on feel. Um, and I'm sure you can relate to that. Like it just you kind of in the off season, work with that rep range and just kind of try to stay healthy, right? And then, probably every, 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how I'm feeling, I'll work in a deload, which is, but just to kind of keep myself primed up, I won't go less than anything than like 60%. Um, because that's just how my body reacts. Like if I just, excuse my language, but if I just half-ass it for, you know, 2 weeks, or it just my body, it deflates and it loses its prime, and then it messes with me mentally. So I've learned to like not go below that threshold. um and then once we get into prep, I always give myself at least 12 weeks. Sometimes it's like 13 or 14, but typically about 12 weeks. um and then it's pretty standard. We start with like 5 or 6 reps for the compound movements. And then, we work our way up to, doubles and singles for a couple weeks towards the end of prep. Not pushing things too much, a couple weeks out. And then just, while we're in the mix of that, obviously accessories play a huge role, in your success. And but aside from that, like with the compound movements, I'll incorporate things that I'm weak on. So for example, for a long time, and still like my weakest point of bench press is the lockout. So you know, I'm doing a lot of tricep work. I'm doing a lot of close grip. I'm doing a lot of banded work, a lot of pin presses, stuff like that, for squats. Um, just to because I've always been a decent squatter. And uh, you know, I wouldn't say that I have necessarily any weaknesses with it, but the thing, um, for squatting, as much as I squat, is it's the mental aspect. So what I'll do is I'll work in reverse bands. If I'm hitting like a pretty heavy, like, you know, triple or double or even a single, just to build that confidence up. Like, if I haven't hit that weight with that rep range, I'll do that reverse band work just to build my confidence up. I mean, obviously it helps you out of the hole a little bit, because I'm only using like, you know, maybe 30, 40 pounds out of the hole. But it's mostly to like prime the CNS and then build the confidence. And then for deadlifts, it's always the lockout's always been the hardest for me. So I'm doing box deadlifts or vert pulls. I'm doing banded work. Doing block pulls, stuff like that, to really work those hips, because I'm pretty strong off the floor, but like sometimes I can't just, you know, I think so many times in my life I've been disappointed with my deadlift, like on a failed deadlift, because I feel like it's at my knees, but it's actually halfway up my quads, and all I had to do was push my hips forward. So that's kind of like, I keep it pretty simple, with my approach, because it's, some people get a little swirly with the RPEs and, you know, doing this accessory or that accessory, and it's just like you kind of find a box that works for you, and then you stick with it. And, as long as your progression's linear, you know, along the way and you stay, relatively healthy, that works for you. So,
Yeah, and I think a big takeaway from that is, I mean, obviously different training styles work for different people, and everyone just needs to kind of find their own thing. But the more and more you kind of realize, and once you get to these higher totals and these more professional lifters, you're seeing that recovery and staying healthy is probably more important than the actual training. And not only that, but not blowing your load early in a prep and frying your CNS and just different things like that. Like less is more at that point, because at that point you're just trying to prime your body. You're only going to get so much stronger during a prep. You really build yourself in the off season.
oh, I love that you brought that up because I just talked to my coach about this the other day. Um, Shout out to my coach, Evan Mensing. He, absolutely wonderful person, human being. And, he is just so precise with everything. And we talked at length the other day about like, you know, so many people, they get lazy in the off season or they just take it easy, but that's where you make your money.
Yep.
That's, to your point, that's where you build your robust joints. That's where you have your injury prevention is in the off season. And just being complacent in the off season is just not going to make you a good competitor if you want to do this for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and like an analogy would be like the off season is you putting in your foundation, your drywall. The prep is just putting the paint on the house.
Bingo. Yep. It's just gravy. It's just gravy to the meal. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
So over the years, maybe just have there been any other setbacks for you besides the bicep tear, or anything that kind of maybe gave you some doubts or maybe some lessons that you learned along the way?
um, yeah, I've had my bouts with injuries. You know, Fortunate for me, and knock on wood, this full distal bicep tear on my right arm was the first major injury I've had in any sport. Um, so like it made it that much harder for me. Um, so it was probably, I've had pulled muscles, I've had, things I've had to get, massaged out and, pulled this, pulled that, because that happens in any sport, especially strength sports. Um, but with this bicep tear, it taught me it taught me a lot, because it was like the biggest setback I've ever had as an athlete. And it's like, you have two choices. You can either kind of lie down and give up, or you can come back and, be better. It just, to me, an injury, and anybody, who listens to this podcast and is dealing with an injury or, you know, has had an injury and like gave up strength sports or whatever, it's just like it just adds depth to your story. If you still have the passion and the desire for it, like, you know, this isn't the end. Like no amount of injury is the end for you. You can still find passion and love for either strength sports or something else. So this was like my major setback. I think the only other setback, I guess mentally, and just like out of everyone's control was COVID. Um, I, I literally competed in the Arnold in 2020 on the elite day. So at the time I had like I don't know, an 1860 total or something like that. So I qualified for the elite day. Went out there and then, the whole world shut down. It was just like 2 years of that. So I didn't compete for 2 years. And then, back in 2022, I did my first meet in a couple years, and I think those two things were really like the biggest setbacks I've had in power, for sure.
Yeah, I think that kind of brings up the classic of someone will get injured and then doctors who don't know. I mean, obviously doctors know what they're talking about, but at the same time, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Oh
Will
yeah,
tell someone, "Oh, you'll never lift again," or "You'll never walk again." But then, if it's all your mindset, like you can get back to that platform if you truly want it, if you truly love the sport. There's almost, like you said, there's almost nothing that can stop you from getting back in some capacity. If you have to be carted off a wheelchair just to bench press, like you can figure it out.
yeah. Listen. I know a guy. Um, he's connected to ABC. He doesn't really lift there anymore, but you know, he's got a pretty serious lower back, injury from years ago. And, the guy continues to, compete bench press only because he loves to do it. And he's actually pretty good at it. And he has like hardly any leg drive. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's crazy what you can do when you just, put the mental acrobatics aside and, you know, just nut up and, do what you need to do.
So you said you're doing the Arnold this upcoming March. Other than maybe that sort of meet, have you competed in on any other larger pro events like that?
Um, no. I mean, I did, I did the Arnold back in 2020, but again, that was the elite day. I ran into Larry Wheels when he was about to squat. Um, but I've done, um, I did a meet a couple years ago called Albany Strongest. Won that meet. But other than that, it's all been like pretty like local or regional kind of thing. So this is probably going to be one of the the biggest meet of my life. So because it's sanctioned by the um, World Professional Power League, I believe is the WPPL, which is a world federation. So um, it's kind of on level with like the American Pro or um, something along those lines. Which is, it just it gets my engine cooking because I love it.
So have you considered maybe trying to get into the Ghost Clash or the American Pro at some point?
I thought about it because it would be nice for someone to like kick my ass. It would, no, I'm coming off cocky by saying that, but it would be really like, I think it would draw so much more out of me than I already put on the platform, being in the Ghost Clash, or the American Pro. Haven't gotten an invite. If I get one,
Yeah.
I'll show up. Um, and honestly, like, it's meets like that really like give me so much excitement for the sport because it was only until recently that like the USAPL did all the light show and the announcing and all that, but now like they're incorporating that into other federations and other meets, and they're drawing the excitement out in the sport, making it real fun and like competitive. And I think, honestly, that's such a huge contributing factor of why some of these cyborgs are showing up,
Yeah.
because it's fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The guys like John Hack, like just those absolute insane people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good point because there's I forget what episode it was before, but we were talking about just imagine there's so many freaks of nature out there that have just never stepped on a platform, that these big production meets and things that you'll see across different social medias and things that make it look fun and make it entertaining for someone not in this world is not only will it bring some of those people to maybe give it a try, but it'll also bring some more light to the people that are outside of the sport that are like, why the fuck do they just want to do 3 lifts?
because it's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, is it cool watching a strong man pick up a big round stone? Yeah, that's cool too. But it is something to be said, equipped or not, a dude putting 1,000 pounds on his back and going down and coming back up with it. You
Yeah.
know, I saw John do that at the Sizzler. Put 1,000 pounds on his back. Even though it wasn't a suit, man, it was still freaking awesome.
Yeah, he's just a freak. He makes it look like it's a bar. So
Yeah, he's a nice guy to boot. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Oh
and I
man.
think that that's another thing with powerlifting is just the community is. I mean, there's bad apples here and there, but overall, just it's the most accepting and welcoming community, and honestly, outside of just sports in general, probably even in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, you see a lot in professional sports of just like, overpaid athletes just being crybabies about things, and you see it and you're like, are you kidding me? And then you get immersed in powerlifting And it's great that you brought that up because when I met my wife, and I told her that I was a power lifter, it was kind of like a beige flag for her, as the kids say.
Yeah.
And like, I invited her to my meet. It was actually the Arnold qualifier. It was an XBC Arnold qualifier that they held at ABC. And she was like so nervous. She's like, "Is this going to be like way too intense?" I was like, "It's going to be intense, and the energy is going to be crazy, but I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, like by the crowd that you're going to see." And she was like, "I can't believe, like, you know, the support that you guys give each other. Like, even if someone's doing more weight than you, like, or the big guys are like supporting the little guys." She's like, "I can't believe how uplifting everyone is." And I'm like, that's what it's all about. Like, if you're not encouraging people to hit PRs and and stuff, like, then you're in the wrong sport. Like, I think that's my favorite part of competing. And honestly, that's why I had to get a handler last year, the first Sizzler that I did, because I get so sucked into the meat that I'm like, oh shit, I got to warm up for squats. And then I have to take, 315 right off the rip, go to 500 and then do my opener. It's not that crazy, but it feels that way. And I'm like, I'm like all over the place because, I'm so sucked in and then, cheering, the people on the first couple flights on. So it's just, it's such a great part of the sport, man. It's the camaraderie and like just the sportsmanship is second to none.
Yeah, and I think that's funny that you bring that up because that's kind of one of the things that if you're like rolling in with a crew or you're doing a meet with a friend, like you'll get so distracted. Like if they're maybe 3 or 4 attempts before you, you'll be watching them go. Then you're like, oh shit, like I got to get my straps on or I got to get my belt or I missed my
Yeah.
last warm up, so I guess I got to just go out there and hit this. Like it's so fun, but it is a lot. It can be overstimulating at times for sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. But I love it though. But anybody that's like that, you got to get a handler because you're gonna get off track and then you're gonna rush your warm ups and get all clammy because the adrenaline's going so much.
Yeah, and that kind of brings up like another point and maybe something um, that powerlifting or the direction of needs to change is the whole like lone wolf thing. Mostly in the gym, like the headphones up, training alone. Like we should be doing this because we're lifting weights with our friends and we're trying to have fun. Like no one's making
Mm-hmm.
money off of this. Like unless you're full time coach or you're winning every
Huh?
single meet for $5,000 every weekend, but those aren't even there that often yet. So
No.
you got to just learn to have fun and do it with your friends. Like it's not all or nothing. Like it's if you miss a squat, you're not gonna be a failure. Like have fun with your friends, cheer on the next person with you.
Yep. Yeah. I've had John invite me out to his gym to
You
do a
got to come
squat
up.
session.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really have to. Because I know I'd probably hit a PR, you know,
absolutely.
being surrounded by a group of guys like that. My wife, she's so supportive. She's, she understands, how, nerdy I am about the sport. She's like, listen, you know, me and Penelope is my daughter. She's like, me and Penelope, we'll find something to do for the afternoon. You go, hang out with a bunch of sweaty dudes and getting some PRs in. I was like, all right, yeah, I can do that, no problem.
Yeah, that'd be a fun day for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe my question for you is, um, I know in your bio it says you're a scientist. Like, what do you do for your outside life?
Yeah, so my career has been pretty dynamic. So I for a good part of my life, like my 20, most of my 20s, I was like a maintenance mechanic, fabricator, machinist, you name it. And while I was doing that, I was also in the Army Reserve. And I was earning a science degree in biology and human development. And then I got a job with a company called Regeneron. This is not an advertisement for them, by the way.
I
But
actually, yeah, that was a lot of my school alumni actually work for Regeneron, and
Okay.
the company I work for now has contractors there.
Oh yeah. What company do you work for?
Valsource.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we have a ton of contractors on our site, but I started there working on their ultra pure water systems. Um, and then I decided like maybe I should put my degree to use, and now I actually make the drugs. So we make all biologics or antibodies, as you guys might know them as. Um, but it's all immunotherapy. So basically, the medicines we make, people take them, and their immune systems do a lot of the work to fight disease. So that's I make those drugs. I'm in the clean room doing that. Um, so that's kind of what I do for my real job.
So I mean, me personally, I know the gowns in the clean room aren't really built for large people. So did you have like a custom
You ain't
built
kidding.
gowning or something? Because
Nah, dude. So I always go like two sizes up from like. So I usually put on like a 3XL or a 4XL gown. And they have these clean room approved like sweatbands,
Mhm.
and I got to make sure I have one of those on. But yeah, dude, I'm absolutely sweating my butt off for 8 to 10 hours a day. Yeah, they're not breathable at all.
Yeah.
So
With the with work life, do some of your coworkers kind of know what you do? Is that something that kind of stay separate, or something that like your coworkers are aware of and are always asking you about?
So for the longest time, I just try to keep it a secret, and then not that I try to keep it a secret. I just like I'm not one of those guys that goes around and saying, "Oh, I'm big and strong and whatever." I let the total speak for itself,
Yeah.
and this is the the fun way I like to exercise. It's just that's just kind of how it is for me, and but I try to just keep it low key for a while, and then some of my coworkers like started following me on social media, and I would just post things once in a while, and it usually was at like the urging of like my wife, or like one of the guys that I go to the gym with, or something like that. Like, oh, you gotta post this, you gotta record this, you gotta post this, because like I record sets for my coach, but I'll send them to him. But I don't really show them to many other people. And they're like, oh, you gotta, like, a couple years ago, I actually just showed up on my history. I just did something silly. I did a 1,000 pound trap bar deadlift, just cause. And I just sent it to like everybody that was on my team, and they're like, "This is insane! You just picked up 1,000 pounds and just stood there with it. Like, you got to put this as a reel." And I posted that, and then like people that I work with, like they like saw it, and they're like, "Hold on a second, you're this strong? I thought you just kind of like did a bunch of bench press and stuff like that, and you're just a meathead." I was like, "Yeah, I'm a meathead, but like I'm okay at this sport, I guess." And then now people know pretty well, and my wife loves to embarrass me because I don't really like to like gloat. I don't, and it makes me so uncomfortable. And especially if she's got a couple glasses of wine in her, she'll just be like, "My husband," and I'm like, "Could you not right now in this setting, please?" Yeah. So I tried to keep it pretty separate, but it didn't really work out. And now I'm doing this podcast, so joke's on me.
You're getting there. I think one of the funniest things I think of is like as soon as like a friend or a family kind of finds out you're a powerlifter, it's kind of like you're when someone gets a new truck. Like as soon as they need someone to carry something, that you're the first
Oh,
person they call.
brother, I am I am the family mule. Anytime, so one of my wife's best friend, mine and my wife's best friend, Katie, she was moving out of her mom's house, and I literally had to move every single thing out of her apartment by myself into a U-Haul and then into the new apartment. And like, and I was just like moving so quick that they're like, what do I do? And I'm like, this is just my thing. Like, people just ask me to do this. I've gotten kind of good at it. So, get out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, you know what? I'm not gonna be happy, but I'll do it. I'll do it fast. Just stay out of my path.
Yeah, man. It's every time they need something. Doesn't matter who it is. And it's sometimes it's like a friend of a friend of a friend. It's like, oh, this old lady needs, this, 100-year oak freaking uh dresser moved. Can you help move it? All right, cool. I'll do it. I just squatted yesterday. I just hit a pretty heavy double the other day, but I mean, actually yesterday. The CNS is fried, but yeah, I'll do this, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think like I said before, I know you're competing again in March, but maybe for kind of the rest of the year, or just until then, maybe what are some of the goals you have and kind of the things that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I obviously we talked about how important the off season is. So, obviously I'm kind of doing that thing right now, but I'm also about seven, 7-ish weeks out from a charity event. So, because you have ties to Albany, maybe you've heard of it, but it's called King of the Deadlift, Colton's King of the Deadlift. So it's a charity like deadlift party. So basically, I'll speak to the men specifically. There's a lightweight men, middleweight men, and a heavyweight men division. And I don't know the weight ranges off the top of my head, but obviously I'm the heavyweight division. Um, so basically, whoever has the best deadlift in each division is king of the deadlift. They get depending, if you're first place, you get a year free membership at ABC. You get like I think a $200 cash prize. But basically, all the entry fees and a bunch of people donate to it, and they do like a raffle with like gift baskets. Like, local businesses donate gift baskets to do a raffle with. Like, over the last several years, last 6 years, they've been able to raise like over $50,000 for um, a a community outreach program called Captain Cares. And basically it like helps like, youth that can't afford to like go to like a sports camp or a music camp or like do little league or something. Like, their family doesn't have the means to do like these extracurricular activities. This program, gives them the money they need. So I'm going to be doing that in 10 weeks. I'm sorry, 7 weeks. It's the middle of October. And I don't know, maybe I'll hit a deadlift PR because I'll be fresh.
Yeah.
I won't have to do 6 lifts prior to this. Maybe I'll pull like 855 or something.
That'd be nice.
Something crazy. Which will be the heaviest deadlift at that event. My coach at the first King of the Deadlift, before he retired from competing, you should see this guy pull 800 pounds. He made it look like 405. But he pulled 800, tore his bicep.
Oh my god!
But the plan was to go 800, 855, and then 900, which he pulls conventional, mixed grip. So it would have been awesome to see that. But if I pull like 855 in October, that'll be the heaviest deadlift of this event. So, in the history of the event, I think it's on its 7th year. So it's really good. It's a really good charitable event. And then, after that, I'll probably take a couple weeks of deloading and then kind of do a little bit more off season. And then, end of November, we'll rip right into prep, so.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a very fun event, and I think that also brings up just another thing of why powerlifting is so great. There's so many events and so many meets that kind of give back to the community, give back to charities, and like there's charity meets and everything. Like, yeah, it's great to have meets where the lifters are getting money and like the spotters and the loaders and kind of everyone there is getting taken care of, but meets like that give back to charities, and especially for young kids that are trying to get themselves into sports and kind of find some purpose. I think that powerlifting is a great community for that as well.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. And you know what? It's a fun day, man. You get to You get to just like deadlift whatever you can for the that day, or like any other event. You're just winging it and you're just having fun, man. Again, to what we talked about earlier, just gotta have fun with this stuff. Or you're just gonna hate yourself the whole time.
Yeah. So I think we can kind of wrap things up here. So I'll ask you my final question. If you could give a new powerlifter or someone going into their first meet a word of advice, what would that be?
The one thing I would say to any new powerlifter would be to stare adversity right in the face. And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous, especially on the platform or like in training, you're about to hit a number that you've never hit before. But use that as a fuel, use it to thrust you towards your goals. And, you know, that's what I've used in every point in my powerlifting career. You know, I'll tell you, a quick story. When I got back into deadlifting after my bicep tear, I was trying to work hook grip for the longest time, but I got short little sausage thumbs and it wasn't working.
Yeah.
Okay. So I went back to mixed grip and I was scared as shit to pull more than, 600 pounds off the floor. And I'm like, it's, it's scary, but you have to use that to lunge forward and push forward. It's okay to have those feelings, but you use it. You don't lie down and just die.
Yeah.
Don't do that. And that's with an injury, that's with a missed lift. If you're in a competition, you bomb out, you have your feelings for a moment, you feel you feel how you feel for, a day or two, and then you just move forward. And that's it. That's the one sound piece of advice I would give to anybody starting in this sport, especially.
Yeah, that's great. I think that advice you carry over a lot into real life as well. But
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to come on. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. I appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Yes, sir.